A church has moved into an old school in East Chicago that was closed due to the lead crisis. The Carrie Gauche Elementary School building is in the USS Lead Superfund site, which has soil contaminated with lead and arsenic. As Rebecca Thiel reports, East Chicago residents are worried about churchgoers' safety.
Less than a week before kids were supposed to come back from summer break in 2016, the district decided to close Carrie Gauche Elementary. Superintendent Paige McNulty says there was lead and arsenic-contaminated soil in the neighborhood and at a corner of the property.
The residents were concerned, and I would be too as a mom, about my kids walking across the soil and then coming into the building and it being on their feet, on their shoes.
With the exception of a few Environmental Protection Agency offices, the building sat vacant for about 2 years. But Pastor Don Ramirez saw the old school building as the right place to move his congregation.
It was just an opportunity that presented itself, and there was more space. And we were running out of room at our current location, and we took the opportunity.
So, with permission from the district, the church moved here into the old Carrie Gauche School in November. But that left residents wondering, if the school was closed due to lead, how can the building be safe enough for a church? Calumet resident Clemay Bullock is a teacher and co-organizer for the group Calumet Lives Matter.
There should not be children there in that building in the way it's currently being used.
And Bullock says if the building is safe, why wasn't it opened up to let the community decide what's to be done with it? The Environmental Protection Agency says only a small portion of the site near what's now the church parking lot has high levels of contamination, and it plans to clean that up in the spring. As for the building itself, the EPA told Pastor Ramirez it's safe.
I made sure of all those things before we moved into this location. I wasn't going to put people at risk.
Many residents would like to see recent EPA test results for lead and arsenic at Carrie Gauche, but the school district decides who can see them. We reached out to the district, but it didn't respond to our request for the data.
It is unclear when the last time testing has been done at that property.
Debbie Chisower represents East Chicago residents affected by the USS Lead site. She says when the EPA demolished the West Calumet public housing complex next door, that could have spread contamination onto the Carrie Gauche property. And unlike the rest of that portion of the USS Lead site, the cleanup plan for Carrie Gauche hasn't been updated since. The company that monitored the contamination at the demolition site of the housing complex, Americo Engineering, says there were no detectable levels of lead, arsenic, or asbestos in the air during that time. Still, without the data, there's no way to show whether or not the Carrie Gauche property is safe. And even if the old school grounds are safe now, Chisower is unsure it will stay that way once the EPA starts excavating contaminated soil where the housing complex once stood.
There's nothing that prevents contaminated materials from blowing from that site over to the Gauche property.
At a public meeting in November, the EPA's Doug Bellotti says the agency does have protections to make sure the contamination doesn't spread, and it will test along the way.
Yeah, we've got protections that we have planned very similar to what happened when they actually did the demolition of the housing project.
But Chisower says it's unclear if the protections the EPA has in mind for the Carrie Gauche property will be enough to keep people attending the Cross Church safe.
Does Jesus make you happy?
Pastor Don Ramirez is ready to move on. He says it's time to stop focusing on the contamination and start looking at the future.
What can we do to make a difference and keep moving forward and making East Chicago a great place? Because that's what it is. It's a great community.
The EPA declined to be interviewed about the Cross Church. For Indiana News Desk, I'm Rebecca Thiel.